people walking by. Today is beautiful. Saturday morning was beautiful. Caesar should still be sitting outside, alive to say hello. We demand that the NYPD publicly release the names of the cops who killed Caesar. We demand that the NYPD fire them for his murder. We demand justice for Caesar, for his family, and for his community, and for every single victim of the NYPD's brutality. End police violence! Fire killer cops! No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
Thank you. All right, thank you, Brittany, for that speech. Next up, we have Malik from the December 12th movement.
Black power! Black power! Black power! Black power! For black people in Black Bed-Stuy! Black power for black people in Black Bed-Stuy! And the reason why we say black power for black people in Black Bed-Stuy is because black people are under attack. Black people, this doesn't happen last week with the murder of the 78-year-old brother. It's been going on for a very long time, ever since we were kidnapping boy here in 1419. You know, and the legacy of that crime against humanity still haunts us to this day. The legacy still haunts us. You know, we know that police brutality is here and ever present in Bed-Stuy. You know, we know that it would take a community, our community, organized and disciplined to rid our community of police brutality. And that's what we do. We are the Stop the Killing movement, and our job is to organize our community to give leadership to what goes on in our community, what goes on in our streets. What goes on in our community and what goes on in our streets. We know that the killing that goes on in our community, whether it's by the hands of a young, misleading, uneducated young black man, or whether it's from the terror of the police, we know that that is a result of the absence of organized community giving leadership to what goes on in our streets. We know it's because of the attack on our culture. We know it's a result of the attack on black men in particular. The criminal justice system that ensures that our black men, ends up within the prison industrial complex and leaves a void in our community, leaves a void of leadership in our community. We know it's a result of a lack of infrastructural development. We know that there's no accident that 17 to 29-year-old young black men right here in Bed-Stuy, over 50% are unemployed. And we know that's not an accident. We know that we have to deal with those structural issues. We know that not only do we have to deal with those structural issues, but we know that we need to give leadership to the streets, and that requires our leaders. That requires black men in particular, because these young brothers in our streets that are directionless they are going to take leadership and respond to black men, organized black men. That's why we are out here. But know this, not only do we need and call on black men to give leadership to what's going on in our streets, but we also call on our black community. We also call on the entire black community. We call on black men in particular, but we are calling on the entire black community. You know, and we know that the struggle is long and it's hard, but we are here and we are going to ensure that our community gets organized. We're going to ensure that the police get exposed, that they're not here to protect us. The police are not here to protect us, that they are here to protect property and other interests that does not fall in line with our needs. Black power! Black power! Black power! Black people! In Black Bed-Stuy! Black power for black people in Brooklyn! Black power for black people in Brooklyn! Black power for black people in Black Bed-Stuy! Black power for black people in Black Bed-Stuy. Black power for black people in Black Bed-Stuy. In whose streets? In whose streets? In whose streets? In whose park? In whose park? In whose streets? In whose streets? In our lifetime. And we're going to keep saying that until we get black power for black people in Black Bed-Stuy. Go ahead, y'all.
How do you spell racist? NYPD. How do you spell murderers?
NYPD.
How do you spell racist?
NYPD.
How do you spell murderers?
NYPD.
Thank you, Malik, for that amazing speech. And as I mentioned before, this is sadly not the first time the NYPD has killed someone, nor will it be the last until we do something about it. Our next speaker is Daniel to talk about other cases of police violence and murder in New York City. Give it up for Daniel!
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel, and I'm with NICAP. As Jessica and Malik said, this isn't the first, and it won't be the last time that the NYPD recklessly murders an individual, a civilian. Sophia Gomez was an immigrant woman born in Guatemala. On October 5th, 2020, Sophia was walking home from work. She'd only been in New York for 3 months, and she was living in the Bronx off of Pelham Parkway. Sophia worked at a bread factory to make money while she studied to be a nurse. All she wanted to do was to help people. As she crossed Pelham Parkway on her way back home from work, an NYPD cruiser sped down the road going 60 to 90 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. I'll repeat that. Between 60 and 90 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. The cops ran straight through a red light and crashed into Sophia as she was walking in the crosswalk. She died from her injuries 3 days later. Video footage and eyewitness accounts show that the police not only failed to stop for the red light, but they didn't even have their lights or siren on when they sped through and struck Sophia. And again, then, on April 7th of last year, a little over a year ago, the NYPD struck another pedestrian, this time an unhoused gentleman named Ronald Anthony Smith in Crown Heights. The details in this case are disturbingly similar to the ones in Sophia's case. Like the cops who struck Sophia, the drivers of the NYPD van that struck Anthony sped well above the speed limit. Like Sophia, Anthony was in a clearly demarcated zone. He was panhandling. And yet the police still struck him. As a driver myself, I can assure you that anyone who drives in the city knows that there could be someone in the street at any time. And it's our responsibility as drivers to ensure the safety of everyone else on the street. Unsurprisingly, though, the police haven't learned this lesson. Street camera footage reveals that the driver, Officer Orkin Mamadov, may have been watching a soccer game on his phone while he was driving. The footage also reveals that the officers failed to render proper medical aid. They can be seen inconsistently pumping Anthony's chest with one hand. You'd think that after a year and a half, the NYPD would have developed, implemented, and enforced new guidelines to ensure that these reckless killings don't happen again. And if they do, that the officers responsible face appropriate consequences. Unfortunately, if you thought that, you thought wrong. Nothing has changed. Sure, there are more body cameras, and there's more popular support for police reform. But are there fewer killings? Is there more transparency? Is there more justice? There's only one answer to those questions. No. Sophia Gomez had already crossed the entire continent to get here. Ronald Anthony Smith was just trying to get by. The NYPD snuffed out their lives in a single moment, recklessly, brutally, without warning, and without showing any caution or concern for the people who live in the very communities that they patrol. For Sophia Gomez, Anthony Smith, Cesar Robinson, and all others victimized by the NYPD in its reckless disregard for civilian life, we demand justice. We demand full community control over the NYPD. No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
All right, thank you, Daniel, for illuminating other cases of NYPD violence. And again, unfortunately, police violence is not unique to New York City. Just earlier today, it was announced that the 8 officers involved in the shooting and murder of Jalen Walker in Ohio will not be indicted for their crimes. Is this acceptable?
No.
Are we going to stand for it?
No.
What do we do when communities are under attack?
Stand up, fight back.
When the community is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the people are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
And I just want to say as well that while it's important that we are out here today, it's crucial that we continue to organize and demand accountability for all killer cops. We know that Mayor Adams continues to heighten police presence and power in New York City because he himself was a cop. And to that we say, no cops in power! No cops in power! No cops
In power.
No cops!
In power.
So I know I've been talking a lot about how we're going to continue fighting, we're going to stand up, fight back, and that the fight doesn't end today. But how are we going to do that? Next up is Michaela to talk about our current campaign. Woo! Hey y'all, thank you so much for coming out. So, we've really heard a lot about what's happening in New York and Brooklyn with the NYPD and the tragedy of Cesar Robinson that were at the hands of 2 officers, still unnamed. It is absolutely egregious that his nephew called for him to feel safe in his own home, and when he answered the door, he was met with gunfire. However, I want to ask, how many of us have attended a similar protest? How many of us have called for justice, have called for the police to be fired, or called for the murderers to be charged and arrested? And then we have to keep calling for peace and comfort for the families who are left behind. I think everyone here today listening has attended countless and countless protests. This isn't to say that us here today isn't important or isn't good. It is. People power is absolutely important. It's the only way we're going to win. However, what happens when we leave the park today, when we leave the march, or when we leave the rally? We have to continue to organize. As NICAP, we plan to call out these bad and corrupt cops before the tragedy actually happens. Time and time again, cops get away with murder because they get away with so much beforehand. Why is it that we found out that Officer Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd, had 18 complaints on his official record? We only found that out after he already killed an innocent man. One of the officers who murdered Tyree sanctions and impunity to do what they please. I actually want you all to look down the street. Go ahead and look with me. Right down the street, a block away. That's actually the 79th precinct. So who, yep, right down the street. No, right down the block. So who is at the 79th precinct? And who are the officers that we're protesting against? We have Officer Emilio Ortega, who had 18 substantiated complaints that range from excessive force to abuse of authority. Guess how much he makes? $135,000 a year. We have Inspector Timothy J. Scratch, who has received 9 substantiated complaints for abuse of authority. He makes $216,000 a year. We have Lieutenant Andrew R. Chance, who used to be at the 79th precinct, but got shuffled around to the 67th. Why? Well, it's because one day he decided to arrest 2 people while they were hanging out on their stoop. They were living there. It was their stoop. However, that lawsuit ended up costing the city and the people of New York $265,000, and today, Lieutenant Chance makes $178,000 a year. Why is this important? It's important because people who are honestly terrible at their job, racist, part and parcel to this fucked up system, are still being paid to do it. And when it involves the safety of the community, that's a big problem. We have cops who walk around abusing their authority and power, driving their souped-up SUVs into people and murdering those who call for help because they're part of a horrible system. As NYCAP, we understand that our judicial system needs to be completely overhauled. That's going to take time, effort, and strategy. So in the meantime, let's start with some of the worst of the worst. The saying goes that the only good cop is the one that quit. Well, we're going to take it a step further. There are no good cops, and they should all be fired. As NYCAP, we demand that all cops with more than 3 substantiated complaints are immediately fired. We demand that all cops that have harmed or killed someone while driving have their license permanently revoked and are fired. And we demand that all cops who commit an act of harm on someone they're supposed to protect are immediately fired. We demand that all bad cops are fired. Our taxes pay the salaries and pensions of these horrible cops, and it's time that our money is directed to our schools, our libraries, our healthcare system, and jobs. I'm tired of our taxes paying for incompetency, and this goes to the day-to-day traffic officer all the way to cop Mayor Eric Adams. Enough is enough. When I say fire, you say killer cops. Fire!
Killer cops!
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 Thank you. All right, I'm going to do a new chant that we haven't done yet. Indict! Convict! Send those killer cops to jail! The whole damn system is guilty as hell! Indict! Convict! Send those killer cops to jail!
The whole damn system is guilty as hell!
Indict! Convict! Send those killer cops to jail!
The whole damn system is guilty as hell!
Indict! Convict! Send those killer cops to jail!
The whole damn system is guilty as hell!
Like Michaela just spoke about, it is crucial that the NYPD is held accountable for their crimes. However, our fight against police violence doesn't end simply when killer cops receive justice. We need a whole new system to keep cops in check. NYCAP is an organization dedicated to fighting against police crimes and demanding a new system of accountability for police. For our last speech of the night, Sharif is going to talk about our campaign for
community control of the police. Give it up for Sharif!
All right, if you are out here in the crowd today, I want you to repeat it. I'm going to do a chant. I want you to call back out when I say it. So when I say people, you say power. People, 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 people. Awesome. Welcome, friends, members of the community. My name is Sharif, and I'm a member of the New York Community Action Project. We've heard from a number of speakers about police violence in New York City and across the nation. And I don't know about y'all, but I am sick and tired of having to speak out against the crimes that the police commit in our communities, especially NYPD. Enough is enough. We are out here because we know we must fight back against NYPD abuses and demand justice for Cesar Robinson and other victims of NYPD. We shouldn't be out here protesting today against the NYPD shooting an elderly man in our neighborhood, an elderly black man in our neighborhood. Let me specify that. This is just further proof that now is the time where folks must get involved with organizations like NYCAP to demand for justice and control over our own communities. NYCAP has been working on a campaign for complete civilian control over every aspect of policing in this city. We're working on this campaign because we are sick and tired of seeing black and brown people die at the hands of the police. We want to see a council that will hold NYPD accountable and defend those who have been victimized by the police. Not take people's complaints and just push them to the side. We don't want a review board that's going to hear cases like the one that happened with Cesar Robinson or any other anyone shot in our community and then doesn't do a damn thing about it. The death of Cesar Robinson is yet another example of why we need community control of the police. Because let me be explicitly clear when I say this. Cesar Robinson did not deserve to be shot down by the police, no matter what the case was. And based off what they reported, it seems as if they didn't even try to de-escalate the goddamn situation before just deciding to shoot him. So why are our taxpayer dollars going to people who are not being trained to de-escalate situations, but instead is being trained to kill people within our community? Why is money coming out of our paychecks going towards people who can't even properly do their goddamn jobs?
That's right.
We must demand for a council, a police accountability council that's made up of members of the community who have never been cops and have zero ties to the NYPD. This council needs to be made up of the very same people who have been targeted, who have been mistreated, and who have been abused by the NYPD, because our community should have a say in how we are policed. CPAC will have full control over hiring and firing of police officers and to investigate the wrongdoing of police officers. The death of Mr. Robinson is a prime example of where we see CPAC having full involvement so that the next time a cop kills someone in cold blood, whether that's by shooting them or running them over with a police van, the officers involved will be identified, investigated, and punished to the fullest extent. And let me make it clear, when we say fullest extent, we want their asses locked up for killing people in our community. So, let me make this explicitly clear as well. We will see community control over the police in New York City. We saw it achieved in Chicago, and we are seeing other cities across the nation take up this fight as well. Our communities, the black community in New York City, Bed-Stuy, will never be free until we have the power to take control over our own communities. Community control of the police is vital to ensure our survival and vital for the families who are constantly losing their loved ones by the NYPD. So join organizations such as the New York Community Action Project and join our fight for community control of the police and demand to fire killer cops. So repeat after me. Fire killer cops!
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 What do we want?
Justice!
What do we want?
Justice!
What do we get it,
Shut it down.
if we don't 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 get